Hello, welcome to Graceful Embroidery. Today I'm going to explain my new method of quilting in the hoop. There's no better way to show you this than for me today to stitch out one of the quilt blocks in the new Strawberries and Cream collection. Before I start showing you the process, I just want to explain what you're going to see. I have to confess that this stitch out didn't work out as I anticipated. I learnt some very important lessons as I tried to solve the problem. So what I have done is, this is the first tutorial on my quilt block, and it will explain the whole process. If you're interested to see what happened when I tried to sort out the mess that I created, then you may want to watch the other video. Here is this quilt block, and it's been stitched out on 2 layers of stitch and tear, and no batting. I've used a beautiful pale pink silk dupion, which you can see here, which I think really looks great with these designs. It almost captures that beautiful combination, that beautiful colour that happens when cream is poured over strawberries. So all the colours of the embroidery have been stitched out, and then I've stopped and I've stupidly taken this out of the hoop, which I shouldn't have done because I was concentrating on the filming, but never mind. It will give me an opportunity of doing precise positioning on my machine. I suggest you don't take it out of the hoop. I've made a boo-boo there, but we all make boo-boos when we're doing our embroidery, and the secret is to work around them and get it. Now what we're going to do first of all is we're going to trim all these jump stitches. You tend to find that they're all in clusters, and so I'm getting to the stage in life where I suffer with sore wrists. So if I spend too much time trimming and getting rid of jump stitches, it makes my hands ache. You see how they're in groups, and I'm just going around snipping them. Let's face it, we can get a little bit carried away with the need to trim everything and make everything look nice on the back. If nobody's going to see, what does it matter unless you've got all the time in the world? So I've trimmed that. Now I know that the design goes around, it emphasises elements, and also on this design there is some quilting stitches, but you may not want to do those. You may just want to do the surrounds, which when the batting is on the back will lift the embroidery up. So what we're going to do is, it's most essential that my box of stitches that hold the embroidery in place are left there and still supporting the embroidery. So what I'm going to do, I use my stitch ripper for this. It's very good for getting underneath things, and as you can see I'm running it. Whoops, that cut too much. Perhaps if you run it too long it creates. Do it with my scissors. I know they're slightly curved, but that's not a problem. So you can see what I'm doing. I'm cutting between the supporting stitches, and I'll need to go around again because I've got 2 layers on here. Now what we're going to do, we'll cut into here, and we're going to remove 1 layer of this stabilizer, and because we've trimmed most of these jump stitches we shouldn't have too much of a problem. Right, I'm slowly working through this, and this is not something that you can rush, especially the first time you are doing it. And as you can see, I've put a wad of batting under there because I think that supports the embroidery and it's less likely to move. And as you've got 2 layers of stitch and tear, I think removing 1 layer at a time is far more gentle. Now, obviously, when it comes to stabilizers, there are so many options. I can never use wash away because I tend to do most of my embroideries on silk, and I never wash my, that's missed a few stitches there, stitch jumps. Right, so you get the idea, and that's the first layer removed. Apart from this corner, more stitches to cut. There we are. Now we're ready to remove the second layer, and because it was done in strips, it lifts up easily. Now, this method cannot be used for every type of quilt block. It will only work if the embroidery is completed before the quilting stitches. And I confess that some of my quilt blocks, like Celtic Ivy in particular, the quilting stitches are added first before some of the embroidery, so this method won't work. Now I'm going to go in here and make sure that the second layer is trimmed, because if I'm pulling too much, I will go beyond this boundary here and the embroidery will not be so well supported. It's funny. You do your very best to not make mistakes and to do things carefully, but I've found in machine embroidery not to go into panic mode when I've made a mistake, because invariably you discover something new from your mistake. It may be that the obvious solution doesn't come immediately, but some of my I've made some incredible discoveries, and they have resulted from mistakes. And I assure you, I have mistakes. I have bad days when it's probably not a good idea that I turn the machine on at all, because my machine seems to know when I'm stressed. Now, obviously, the most important thing is that you don't cut the fabric below. Right, now it's all trimmed, but it's still supported by about 1/4 inch, so just doing a bit more trim. But I thought I'd be brave and honest with you. The fact that I find cutting jump stitches a real pain, and I don't like to do it because it makes my hands ache, and it's not good. But if nobody's going to see it, what does it really matter? I mean, the most important thing is that the actual jump stitches have been cut, because if they're not cut, that may cause some puckering to happen. Right, I'm going to stop the video now and finish off all the little bits and come back to you. But one thing I would say, there are certain areas where it may not be necessary to remove the stabilizer. You need to be aware of where the quilting stitches are going to be. And I know the quilting stitches are going to go around this leaf and around this sort of shape of the strawberry and the scroll. So it probably wouldn't be essential that I remove the stabilizer in the middle. And this is also the case with my new Jacobean Sampler quilt blocks. They can be stitched out using this method. And I encourage you to look to see where the stitches are going to be. Now, they do go around this border, and so it's important that I remove the stabilizer between each little segment. And if it's tough, don't pull it too much, just give it a snip. And as I say, I tested this out with several different stabilizers, and I found that the stitch and tear for silk was the easiest way of removing the stabilizer to do the quilting. Now we've got 2 layers here, but it depends, a lot depends on what look you're trying to achieve, whether you want a flat quilted look or a nice deep one that almost looks like trapunto. And obviously the type of stabilizer that you use and the method you're going to use is going to be different for everybody. Right, I shall finish this off and come back to you, and we'll look at the next stage in a minute. Now we are nearly here. We've nearly taken everything out, and I'm just going to show you how if you've not seen before, how I remove these little bits which are not open. They are sealed inside the embroidery. And while I do that, you may wonder why the stitch ripper opens it up quite easily. It doesn't matter if you only do one bit at a time, but you can poke it like that and open it up. You may wonder why I embroider with silk when it does have disadvantages. I think one of the main reasons that I embroider most of my designs on silk is that I love the variety of colours, and I like the way that the silk takes the colours. Man-made fabrics can look quite different, the colours, than they can on natural fibres like silk. And when you actually find a silk distributor, you find that there are often hundreds of shades, and that is one of the reasons I love it. I find it's quite forgiving, and especially this slubby type silk. So that is all we're going to remove. I'm just making sure there's no bits of sticking up. I'm not going to worry about those little bits, they're quite small. When I took the embroidered quilt block out of the hoop, there was no saving it to a certain extent. So what I did, I tried to rescue it, and as I explained, that is, you can see my rescue process in another video, and I'll link that. But what I did is I decided to stitch out another quilt block, and so the pictures you now see will be of the second quilt block that I prepared and how I successfully did the quilting stitches inside the hoop. Right, here's my little wad of batting, and this is the quilt block that we're going to finish off today. As you can see, all the embroidery has been completed, and it's just waiting now for the quilting stitches. If I turn it over, you can see I've left it in the hoop. I don't think I'll make that mistake again, but it was an interesting journey. I've taken out most of the stabilizer, and there is a nice little edging round here still supporting it. And so before we add the batting and the sulky soft and sheer, I need to press it. The iron's on, I believe, and when that batting is underneath, it supports it nicely. Sorry, my arm's in the way of the camera. There we are. Probably not able to press it as much as I would normally, but at least the stitches are set a little bit. Notice how much the strawberries and these double satin flowers pop. So now we need to add the batting and the sulky soft and sheer and take it to the machine and do the quilting stitches. I have here my piece of batting, and I have noticed that it's extremely important to right, we've secured the batting and the sulky soft and sheer with temporary adhesive. This is wonderful stuff. It does gunk up your hoops, but it is possible to clean them up, and it does hold everything in place. Now the sulky soft and sheer goes at the bottom. Now it's very important, that's what I was saying before, it's very important not to spray temporary adhesive spray on your embroidery, on your silk. Silk doesn't like getting wet, so we will spray the batting. Remove that little thread, and of course all these threads on the back are going to disappear. I'm going to lift that up, put that down, and then very carefully align that in place, making sure that the batting is over the quilt block. There we are. And I've got a nice amount of the mesh stabilizer poking out, so that I will be able to see that it's not curled up underneath when I put it on the embroidery unit. Here we are at the epic. I'm just going to cut off these slivers of stabilizer which are not required anymore. And I've loaded the machine with the correct design. Got rather a lot of stuff over here. I think I'm going to have to trim that off so it doesn't get caught in the embroidery unit. Whoops, it's very hot. I need a camera that's attached to the ceiling and comes down. Whoops. Right, so we're nicely attached here, and let's check the screen of our computer, remembering that I've got to go to the end of the design. There's two, whoops, no, it's not that colour, these two colours here. This is the quilting stitches, and this one here is the satin border, which is optional. You may not want to put that round your quilt blocks. So here we are, 1071. I always find it's very dangerous if you stop an embroidery and do something else and then come back to it, which in fact is what I did this morning. I stitched out a little design that I wanted to see how it featured. In fact, it was the letter A from my next set of designs, which will be the alphabet to complement the Cassandra's White Works collection. Right, here we are. I'm just going to show you, which I perhaps didn't. Let's zoom out. There you can see the shaping of the quilting stitches, and for this particular design they are just vertical stitches in the gaps that the main strawberry plant and these three corners make. Here is our finished block, and I've included the satin border in this stitch out, but as I pointed out before, that's optional. Whoops, it's funny how certain jump stitches you don't see. Oh, and there's a big one going across there. Right, so this is the look that this is my advanced method of quilting in the hoop, and obviously different designs will look different, but this particularly shows off the loveliness of the, now that's not a jump stitch, that's a slubby bit of the silk. Really makes the strawberry plant stand out. And let's just have a little look at the back. I mean, we didn't add any backing to this, but as you can see, there's not much protrusion on the back here. Everything is being pushed up on the front of the design. So that is my advanced quilting in the hoop method, and as I pointed out before, it won't work for everything, but now you know, check your designs and see if the quilting stitches are at the end. If they are at the beginning, they still it may be possible to move them to the end and use this method, providing they don't go over the embroidery at any point. I hope you found this useful, and if you want to know about the painful journey of the first quilt block from the strawberry and cream set that I did, and the lessons I learnt and the mistakes I made, and just a general, it just all went hopelessly wrong. But never mind, I learnt things from it, and I hope if you're interested that you will as well. Thank you for watching, and I hope that you're able to create something, a work of art on your embroidery machine together today. Happy hoopings. Bye for now.